Good afternoon, listeners. It's Nikki here from Dyslexia Unpuzzled in Hawke's Bay. Welcome to our monthly podcast where we share inspiring stories of resilience, learning and transformation from people in our community. At Dyslexia Unpuzzled, we're passionate about helping neurodiverse individuals and their families understand how their brains work and how to turn learning challenges into lifelong strengths. As always, we are broadcasting on Radio Hawke's Bay 104.7 FM and 1431 AM. The conversation that we're having today is a very special one for me personally, and I'm delighted to be joined by someone who has played a really important role in my own journey as a facilitator. Margot Young is the owner of Wellington Learning Solutions and has spent many years working with individuals with dyslexia, dyscalculia, dyspraxia, ADD, ADHD, and autism. She has also trained and mentored facilitators across New Zealand and the Pacific, I believe, Margot, through the Davis dyslexia approach. And Margot was actually the person who trained me back in 2021 and kindly guided me through my early days as a facilitator. So it's a real privilege to have you join us today, Margot. So welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for inviting me, Nikki. It's wonderful to be here.
Well, I know there's an auspicious occasion coming up very shortly, and I didn't want you slipping through the cracks, you see. So, yeah.
I'm
So
not going to be lost to Davis completely. I'm
I'm
just
sure, well, we certainly hope
going
not.
to get it wrong.
Good. Margot, could you please start by telling our listeners a little about who you are and the work you've been doing through Wellington Learning Solutions?
Obviously, my name's Margot Young, and I've been working with individuals through the Davis techniques since 2007. Initially, I lived in Auckland, and my business was Auckland Dyslexia Solutions. And then after about 5 years, a bit over 5 years, my husband and I moved back to Wellington, which is where we moved when we first left university. I changed my business name to Wellington Learning Solutions because, as well as covering dyslexia, ADHD, and dyscalculia, the maths version, I was also licensed to work with people on the autism spectrum. And now, as a part of my retirement move, I'm living in Turangi in the middle of the North Island and planning a move to the Bay of Plenty next month. And I have renamed my business Whakamarama Learning Solutions, which is Whakamarana means to clarify, illuminate, and is also a area near where I'll be living. So that's my sort of business journey. And yeah, so basically, I work one-on-one with individuals with those learning challenges and show them how to use their strengths to overcome their weaknesses, just like you do, Nikki.
Oh, fantastic, Margot. So, Margot, you've been involved with the Davis work for quite some time now. So how long have you been working in this field, and how did your journey with dyslexia support first begin?
Well, I've actually been licensed since late 2007, so just 18 years now. But found out about the Davis method in 2003. When I was looking for a solution to help my younger son um, unlock his learning potential, really, because he was one of these kids that could tell you all about it. Um, at 9 years old, he had a vocabulary of a 14-year-old, but his reading, writing, spelling age was only about a 6-year-old. So there was a huge gap between what he knew and what he could tell you about, and what he could put in a format that the teachers could examine, and assess. And he had given up on learning. I'd known for a couple of years, 2.5 years, that he had a problem with learning, but we didn't have a label for it, dyslexia, because it was before dyslexia was officially recognised by the New Zealand education system. And we'd been working for 2.5 years with this spelled tutor, but we weren't really making any progress. And the wheels fell off in the middle of his year 5, and yeah, like I said, he'd given up, and I'd asked him, if he tried hard with reading, and no, Mum, I'm never going to get that. And what about writing? Nah, never going to get that. Spelling? Nah, I can't do that either. What about maths? Nah, I can't do that. Never going to get that. And that was the bit that shocked me because until that stage, he was quite good at maths. Yes, it took him a while to read the questions. Um, and he may only do 50% of the test, but he would get like 99% of that correct.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, like at the end of his year 4, and he was doing about 75% of the test and getting about 74% as a mark, but still getting 99% of what he did correct. So when he gave up, when maths was too hard, that was a thing that was like blew me away. I thought something's going funny here, and I started investigating things, and that's when I found the Davis technique. I found out that he was actually dyslexic when I asked the spelled assessor for a book that would help his teacher understand the way he learned. And all the books had dyslexia in the title. So, and when I asked her why that wasn't in the report, she said it wouldn't give you the help he deserves. Because at the time, the then Minister of Education said that dyslexia was an excuse that middle class parents use for their children who weren't achieving. So,
Oh
um,
my heaven.
so that so that was the attitude that was prevalent in the early
Right.
2000s, and but so that's why they didn't put dyslexia in the report because it would have just got ignored. But when you have a report that says it's a visual spatial learning disability, and which is not yeah, sort of language I would use today. I wouldn't use disability at all. But that, and specifically where his weaknesses were, that meant that he qualified for some intervention at the school. Not that that actually helped him because there was nothing different there at school. It was just more of the same. Yeah, so when I was in a bookshop looking for these books that I'd been given, I did find The Gift of Dyslexia by Ronald D. Davis, and the byline of why some of the smartest people can't read and how they can learn really piqued my curiosity because I knew he was quite smart. He has some very high tests on his IQ, high scores on his IQ test, like 97th percentile for block design, but some very low ones as well, like
Mm.
3% for processing and coding, and the range in the middle as well. So, he had some that sort of difference, the struggle that he was facing with some really high IQ scores, but some very, very low ones, which were really compromising his output and therefore how he could be assessed. But his ability was shown in these much higher scores. So when I read part of the book when I was in the bookstore, I thought, I know why this works. And
Mm.
because I think the same way as my son, and I could see how that would make a difference to him. So I put all the other ones back and only went home with one book.
Oh,
And
there you go. And it was a pretty powerful book too, and certainly
yeah,
a life-changing method of learning.
yeah.
Um, so that would have been sort of heartbreaking for him, and yourself trying to work your way through that processes, and disappointing that that attitude of he's just not trying enough
Mm.
was in that psyche. So,
Yeah, yeah.
mm,
Because the principal said that, it was all his fault and nothing was going to change until he got motivated.
right.
And the educational psychologist said, well, look, he's only 9 years old. You're going to be lucky if he's motivated at 19. And,
Oh,
and it's the school's job to provide an environment that motivates him to want to learn. Um, and yeah, obviously he was just totally disheartened by all his achievement.
mm.
Mm.
You can imagine how, that transpired for him. And he would have been
Yeah.
heartbroken and yeah, absolutely understandable that it's like, oh, well, I can't do this. It's just too hard. And he gave up. So,
Yeah,
mm,
well, his math score, because he's also dysgraphic, which means his very poor handwriting because he
hmm
dyspraxic too, which means his hand-eye coordination is bad. And dyslexic. So when he was writing some numerals, he'd write them back to front. And so a six would be written back to front. And then his dysgraphia meant that he couldn't meet the line, he would cross the line. And so that looked like a two. And they'd done a section on probability, and what's the chance if I throw a dice, I'll get a three. And he'd written down 1/6. But the six was backwards and not well written, so it was marked as 1/2 and wrong. And he got the whole section wrong, and he didn't understand why he got it wrong.
Oh,
Because if he thought the answer wasn't 1/6, what was it? It
well, of
just didn't
course,
make any
because
sense to him.
yeah,
Uh,
because often when you get that score back or you get that mark back from the teacher and they don't necessarily give you that explanation of why they've marked it. It's they've perceived it how they've perceived it.
yeah.
And, there's no, oh, they wouldn't have known that it was supposed to be a 1/6, would they? So,
No, but I pointed it out to the teacher and she
yeah.
said, I said, that's Noah's six. And she said, yes, it is. And I said, why is it marked wrong then? She says, oh, because that teacher didn't know that that was his six. It was a new teacher who was just in their first year of teaching. And well, why doesn't that teacher know?
Mm,
What is not happening in the handover that is missing and saying, well, this kid writes letters and numbers back to front. You need to be cognizant of that. And yeah, so it was very disheartening for him. So yes, so that yeah, it was. I mean, he'd been struggling for a couple of years, and we'd been giving him support as much as we could, and much as we knew about. Um, but yeah, it wasn't really till, as I say, the wheels fell off, that we dug a lot deeper and found out really what was going on. So uh,
mm.
it was it was a challenging time, but yeah, then I found the Davis program, and life turned around for him amazingly.
Oh,
And
that's so
and
cool.
that was when I saw that program being done. I thought, wow, this is what I need to do with my life.
Yeah.
This is me. This is why I'm here on the planet
Oh,
to make
for
this
sure.
difference. Yeah,
Yeah. So, along with being a parent that has been through that, your work has also supported a range of people with neurodevelopmental differences, including that autism, ADHD, and dyspraxia, and dyscalculia, and what was the other one? Dysgraphia.
yeah.
So, from your perspective, what are some of the common challenges that families face with when these differences are not understood?
Well, I think it probably mental fatigue or mental load is probably the biggest one. Always having to explain to teachers, learning support staff what's going on, and until you actually understand it, it's really hard to explain it and offer what the teachers could be doing to support the child.
Mm,
And they're always expecting more because my experience is that teachers are taught that if a child's not learning, it's because they're a bad teacher, or the child has low IQ, or they don't want to learn. And in my experience, that is they're missing a whole pile in their teacher training to look at the alternatives. And this excuse they don't want to learn is that's just bravado that you see
mm,
from a teenage onwards usually. Well, I don't care, but just it's in order to maintain their self-esteem.
mm,
Know? Um, and every child deep down does want to learn. I've had 16-year-olds in my office with ADHD have been kicked out of home because they're breaking the rules all the time. And when I say, everybody wants to learn, there's tears in their eyes because
mm.
that is true. I don't think even as adults, we all want to learn. We don't go to work to make a mess of things.
No,
Oh,
and yeah, and that would be the same thing for the teacher. I mean, they wouldn't be set out to be a bad teacher. It
mm,
would be that lack of understanding,
yeah,
and yeah, certainly coming from my own teaching journey, I know that we just didn't have any training about, well, I think we had a morning's lecture on dyslexia and told that we would very rarely see it in our teaching career. So,
yeah.
I mean, how far from the truth can you get?
No, not
So,
when 25% of the population is probably dyslexic.
well, that's
Learn
right.
something, and
Yeah.
you are going to, that's a big hunk of your classroom that you you don't have the skills to deal with.
Well, that's right. It is a big chunk of the classroom. And, we all know that there is that, group of people that just don't learn the way that the school system teaches. And, it must be exceedingly difficult for them to sit through class after class, day after day, and knowing that they're not improving and not getting better and not understanding. And not understanding why.
Mm. Yeah, and for the teachers too, it must be incredibly frustrating to think, well, I've done everything I've ever been taught how to do, and I'm still not getting through to this child, but I am getting through to, the other 20 odd in the classroom. So, it can't be me because I am getting some success.
Mm,
But it
yeah.
must be the child. But then you've got a child there who can actually tell you about something 5 years ahead of their chronological age, but they can't read about it at
Mm,
all, even close to their chronological age. So it's yeah, it is a challenge, and I think for families, they don't understand what they're dealing with. They're working in a system that doesn't understand it, that doesn't support the teachers who are trying to work with these children and help them to learn. So, yeah, I think the mental fatigue is probably the biggest thing they face, and lack of knowledge on
mm,
that they have and that the school and education system has. So,
yeah,
but,
absolutely.
mm,
Yeah. So, and I really don't know how we're going to turn that one around because it definitely is time that it was turned around.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, there's a lot of things in life that when you think about something and you do it in a completely different way, that's quite a big paradigm shift. And I saw a thing recently that people would rather be right than know the truth.
Right.
And it takes quite a bit of mental agility to think outside the square and go, you know
Hmm.
what, maybe everything I know is not true. Maybe,
Maybe.
yeah, maybe there's some other way of explaining this.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the thing is, if you were to flip the narrative and actually taught that 25% of the people, that we spoke about that struggle with the reading and the writing and the maths and all that sort of stuff, and taught them in a way that they would understand. I mean, it would have to benefit the other 75%, wouldn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and
Mm,
Davis Learning Strategies is proof of that. When that's been implemented in a classroom, they're finding that they're getting zero referrals for learning support, and they're getting at least double the number of referrals for the gifted intelligent programs. So everybody is benefiting. Uh,
mm.
it doesn't mean we throw phonics out the window. It means that we work with them both so that we can make sure that everybody benefits.
Well, agreed. And I mean, it really needs to work in layers, doesn't it?
Mm,
And if you start with that base layer, then surely everything else can just enhance the learning from that base layer,
yep.
that base foundation.
Mm, mm.
So, Margot, I'm just looking at the time here, and we've sort of got a little bit, yeah, we need to sort of race on a bit. So I want to
Okay.
ask, yeah, you've spent many years training and mentoring facilitators across New Zealand and the Pacific, including myself. What was it that made you want to train facilitators as well as running your own programs?
Um, I was looking for some more challenge, to be honest, in my life
Hmm.
and my business. And I really, wanted the extra something extra to do. And it was offered to me. My predecessor wanted to retire from the role, and she approached me and asked me if I'd like to do it. And um, for me, instead of affecting one person's life at a time, I am then generating, not quite cloning myself because we're not all clones, right? But I am creating more of me. So then the number of people that can be affected are greater. So that's why. I mean, I love the training and development side of things.
Hmm.
You know, that is my personality type, that I should do that sort of stuff. And to be able to impact more lives was just, too attractive to give up.
Yeah, fair enough too. I totally agree. So, because my next question is one of the most powerful parts of the Davis method is the use of clay to help people understand concepts and words in that hands-on way.
Mm.
And I remember being very dubious at first when you suggested to me that instead of trying to write out procedures and learn the way that Davis did things during my training, you suggested that I do them in clay. And I said that'd take ages, and you said yes, but it would take longer, but you would only have to learn it once. And that's always stuck with me, that one. So why is that multisensory learning so powerful for dyslexic or other neurodivergent learners?
Partly it's because you've created it yourself and you own it. And Davis, when you make something, when you master something, it becomes part of your identity and part of yourself. And also, in order to do that effectively, you actually have to really understand what you're doing.
Hmm.
And so you've got a deep understanding of it, and you make it in clay, which tactile learning, you're integrating all the learning senses, you're integrating your sight, your touch, and the sound, because you talk about it as well as touch it and make it, and see it. That creates so there's multifacets to it, and that is why it sticks, because, and also, we teach people when they do it to do it in what we'd call an orientated state, a focused, relaxed state of focus. That's the optimum state for learning. So um it and it is just my own experience. Like, I was struggling to learn this stuff, and it was really challenging, and I thought there must be a way of doing this in clay, and I figured it out one day, and I was going to do it that night, and I didn't because I had kids at home and things to do. Went into the training room because we did face to face in those days, pre-COVID. I went into the training room half an hour early, made a model of this procedure that I need to learn. It was orientation counselling, so you'll know how long that one is, Nikki, and how challenging it is. And I made this model, and then we had a pre-workshop session, and we had morning tea, and after morning tea, we got to deliver it. So that was 2.5 hours later or something like that. And I did it, and they reckoned I must have practiced it over 1,000 times.
Oh, is that right?
But
Yeah.
I didn't practice it 1,000 times, to be honest. I only mastered it in clay that morning.
Oh,
But it
yeah.
sticks, and it just because I made it, I understood it, but I made it, and it was sequence that was challenging me.
Mm. Mm.
So I made a
Yep.
sequence of things that needed to be done, and that's why it sticks, because you make it so that you understand it.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
can't
Absolutely.
you can't make it without understanding it. So
No, no, for
having
sure.
real knowledge of it. So yeah, so it's what Ron says, all, everything that's mastered and everything that is truly learned is a creative process. So um
Mm.
yeah, combination of those things.
Yeah, indeed. And I certainly know the difference it made from writing and recording to actually making it. It certainly was much quicker in the end, too. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Margot, you've just dedicated a significant part of your career to supporting neurodivergent learners and mentoring facilitators. So, looking back over that journey, what has been the most rewarding part for you?
Oh, that's a challenging one. I don't know if any part is any more rewarding than any other part, to be honest.
Hmm.
I mean, in terms of working with individuals, like the other week, I was working with a 10-year-old girl who was really struggling with reading, and for her to read something at 11-year-old age group and get a 98% comprehension score and a 97% in word recognition, that's just huge, and the self-esteem that goes with that, the boost to that is amazing. But at the same time, when have like facilitators, trainee facilitators come through and learn this stuff and be able to deliver it and do wonderful programs with individuals, that is really huge. And the growth in those individuals is amazing as well. And that's more over a 12-month, 15-month process now, but I just get a big kick out of people's self-esteem um, being improved, and having this great in knowing that they can do it.
Mm. And I mean, that can happen in a matter of days with this program, can't it? They can come in 1 minute with their sort of lip dropped and their shoulders stooped and their head down. And then really within 2 or 3 days, they've got their shoulders back and their heads up and a great big smile on their face. And I know you've seen that and I have too myself.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's just yeah, pretty
absolutely.
powerful moments.
Mm.
Yeah. Margot, before we finish, so one final question. You've trained facilitators like myself who are now working with learners across New Zealand and the Pacific, supporting people in our own communities. When you look at that ripple of effect of the work continuing through others, how does that feel for you?
Oh, blooming awesome. Um, like I'm only retiring because my hubby's retiring and I'm starting to feel my age, I'm forgetting things and stuff like that, and I get tired more easily and all of that sort of stuff. And it's time to pass the baton on. So I'm
Mm,
still going to work with individuals, but the training of new facilitators is going to, I mean, I'm training somebody up to take over that, but that takes about 2 years to do. So I'm still hanging around. But yeah, my philosophy is that we're on this planet to make a difference and make the world a better place. And how you do that is up to you. If you can fit that in with one of your passions, then that's the best career you could ever do. And I think for me, that's what I've been able to do. I've been able to make a difference to individuals, and my passion of helping people with learning differences to be able to fully contribute to the world and go on and make another, make a bigger difference in the world as well. It's, everybody's making the place a better place to be.
absolutely.
Mm.
I thank you again for your work, Margot. It's been very powerful, certainly since 2021 when we first met. So, and you had this lady on the other end of the phone pleading for you to let her on the program and the training. So, yeah.
I remember that because you found out about the morning we started. So you'd like skip one session and
Yep.
doing urgent couriers, same day couriers to you to get you
Yes, I know.
on.
Eternally grateful I am too. So,
No, so are we. It's wonderful to have somebody like you in the Hawke's Bay doing a fantastic job with everybody.
well, I just think it all comes from the passion to be wanting to help. And, that's
Mm.
what we do best. So, Margot, thank you for joining me. Thank you so much for joining me today and also sharing your story. I know we could have actually had about another 2 hours talking, but unfortunately, I have to wrap up. So, and I also want to thank you personally for the role that you've played in my own journey. Oh, that's a bit emotional. I want to thank you for your patience, your knowledge, your belief in guiding learners and facilitators like myself. And rather than pushing us and just gently nurturing us along. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Nikki. That's wonderful. You make me give goosebumps and feel big lump in my throat too. It's been truly a joy and an honour to work in this field and to work with passionate individuals like you. And yeah, I know you're going to make a huge difference, or you are making a huge difference, and you'll continue to do so.
Thank you, Margot. So, to our listeners, if anything in today's conversation has resonated with you, or you would like to learn more about dyslexia and how it can be supported, please feel free to get in touch.